When I was little, as a child in the 80s, my brother and we were obsessed with Star Wars. I mean, any kids of the 80s, I think, probably were. I would put on my long pajamas, and I put my hair in pigtails and wrap them up in Princess Leia buns. And my brother, he would put on his bathrobe, and we'd run around pretending like we were Luke and Leia. We would always be the good guys. And I think that that's always true for people. We always see ourselves, if we're watching Star Wars, we see ourselves as Luke or Leia or Rey or Han Solo, maybe even Chewbacca if you haven't shaved for a while. But we never see ourselves as being on the dark side. We don't really identify ourselves with Darth Vader or Kylo Ren. Or if we watch something like Harry Potter, we find ourselves on the side of Harry Potter and Hermione and Ron. We never really see ourselves as Voldemort. Or the Death Eaters. Or if we watch any of the Avengers movie, we always identify with Iron Man, Captain America, or Black Widow. We don't really see ourselves as Thanos and his creepy follower guys. I think that this is true when we read the Bible too. As we read the story of Exodus, who do you see yourself as? Here in chapters 7 and 8, this is where the plagues start. Now, Moses and Aaron, they are about to go tell Pharaoh how powerful the Lord is. And the Lord starts to say that he's going to send out these plagues. And the whole time, the Bible says over and over again that Pharaoh's heart is hardened. And this is really interesting because if you read earlier in chapter 4, when they say that Pharaoh has hardened heart, they say that it was the Lord that hardened his heart, which is fascinating. Why on earth would the Lord harden Pharaoh's heart? There's a lot of scholarship out there that suggests the reasons that Pharaoh's heart was hardened. One suggests that maybe it's the scholarship of saying that the Lord wanted to ensure that all the Egyptians would see that that the Lord would defeat every one of the Egyptian gods. Gods like the frog god Heget, or Hapi, the god of the Nile, or Ra, the god of the sun. That God would go ahead and take every single one of their gods down, leaving them nothing left but the God. There are other things that it says that it could be more like Pharaoh refused God. And as he refused God, it just sort of doubled down in Pharaoh's own stubbornness. Psychoanalyst Eric Fromm, he suggests that maybe Pharaoh's heart hardens because he just keeps on doing evil. And as he keeps on doing evil, it hardens to a point where change is no longer possible. So Pharaoh, with this hardened heart, he refuses to let God's people go. And Moses and Aaron, they start the first plague. They turn the Nile into blood. And Pharaoh tries to intervene with his magicians, but they can't do anything about it. Eventually just go up. Pharaoh chooses not to even look at it. He goes up to his house and then completely ignores it. And then finally, the second one, which is a plague of frogs. And the plague of frogs, the whole land stinks with this plague of frogs. And Pharaoh, he's kind of sort of getting convinced a little bit. He says, all right, I'll let your people go. But then he reneges on the deal and he says, no, I'm not going to let anybody go. And the third plague came across the entire land, this plague of gnats all over everything and everywhere. But again, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, and he wouldn't let people go. He became even more stubborn. A fourth plague, flies, swarmed the land, but again, Pharaoh won't let the people go. Now, it's easy for us to look at this and blame Pharaoh for these continued plagues that keep happening over and over again. But when you read the book of Exodus, who are you? When we read it, we tend to see ourselves as Moses or Miriam or Aaron or maybe just one of the Israelites. Most of the time, we don't actually see ourselves as Pharaoh. But what if today we wonder if what we are? What if we are Pharaoh or we are the people of Egypt? I mean, examining my own life, there are places that I've been held captive only because of my own hardened heart. I've denied that I've had any part of it, and it's really easy for me to look out and blame other people for the circumstances that are going on into the world. And my own stubbornness, I don't want to take accountability for myself or see myself clearly, places where I have hardened my own heart. And there are other times when I know that I've hardened my heart because I can't look on the suffering of people around me anymore. I can't hold any more vulnerability out there, so I harden my heart there too. What if Pharaoh is doing that? C.S. Lewis puts away when it talks about vulnerability and heart hardening. He writes this, he says, to love anything at all, maybe to love your people of Egypt, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it up carefully with hobbies and little luxuries and avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safely in the casket or coffin of your own selfishness. But in that casket, safe and dark and motionless and airless, your heart will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable. What if? Where in our lives are we Pharaoh? Who is Pharaoh if Pharaoh has no followers? Who is Pharaoh if Pharaoh has no control? Who is Pharaoh if the gods that he's been praying to are defeated? Who are we if we have no followers? Who are we if we have no control? Who are we if all the ways that we have identified ourselves with this world are gone? And so that vulnerability means that we harden our hearts, that we get stubborn and double down on our position. So as you do your reading today, I got a couple questions for you to think about. Where in your life have you been stubborn? I know you have, because I have too. Where in your life where you have found yourself hardening your heart, either against other people or against a situation in your life that is keeping you captive? And why is that? And here's the second question. What can you do in your life to keep yourself from hardening your heart? What you can do to keep your heart soft and your back strong? This is a great question for us to think about today. You can find more resources on our website, calvaryalex.org/study. Check it all out there. We're glad you're here.